Author Carolyn McCulley grew up loving her family's holiday traditions.
For me, Christmas was always one of the big moments. You have all your special candles burning, you have all your special lights and the food.
And she imagined passing those traditions on to her own family someday.
I thought I would have my own husband, my own children, and those moments of, oh, look at what Mommy gave me.
But in her 30s, Carolyn was struck by how different reality had become.
My Christmas mornings weren't what I pictured.
As a single woman, she struggled through Christmas mornings alone.
I remember the difficulty of lining up my expectations with what God was actually doing and thinking that this isn't good. This isn't good, God. How did you allow this to happen? And it took a couple of years, I can remember, of having Christmases that were good. They were good, but they were tough too, where I would kind of tear up and then put my makeup back on and then go out and be with people, because it wasn't exactly what I expected. Either I could have sat down and said, I don't like this, God, and I'm not going to celebrate you, which is like really an awful thought of self-pity on Christmas Day. That's ridiculous. Or I could say, why has God allowed this opportunity scheduling issue in my life? Could it be to turn my focus outward? You know what? I had never realized how many other people were in the same situation on Christmas Day. There were plenty of people who found themselves alone for whatever reason. And it gave me an opportunity to think through, what could God want with this? What could He be directing my gaze to? And so a friend and I began to do these Christmas morning brunches where we would have people over who didn't have plans otherwise for Christmas morning, to worship together, to sing Christmas songs, to have food, and to realize that there's fellowship in a variety of ways in God's kingdom. And sometimes we just have to get our eyes off of what are our expectations and realize what are our opportunities in the things that we didn't plan for.
This is the Revive Our Hearts podcast with Nancy DeMoss Wolgemuth, author of Choosing Gratitude. For December 18th, 2023, I'm Dana Gresh. Well, last week, Nancy started a series called Making Christmas More Meaningful. She's sharing with a group of women about how they stay focused on what really matters during the holidays. We'll begin with Gladine McCall. She got Nancy thinking about this subject by bringing it up over dinner one night. And Nancy asked her, how do you use your traditions to focus on Christ at Christmas?
Well, it's something I really long to be Christ-centered. And I've done it wrong, but it has been my quest. I've 3 grown married children. And so these are some of the things that I've tried.
I just want to ask you, first of all, what does doing it wrong look like?
The frazzled, overbusy, overcommitted, just stressful, no peace. And so it's created in me a real longing to want to have that peace. In fact, I have 2 little plates in my kitchen that I keep. One says peace and one says joy, just as a visual reminder.
You sell those plates?
No. Oh, they're at Walmart. $3. They're only $3.
Okay, peace and joy. You can get peace and joy for $6. I'll take 2 of them.
But, it is so true. I really echo that, my own heart attitude is going to influence my whole family. And it's going to influence whether I bake those cookies with joy and love, or something that's just not going to matter for anything. It's just going to be a gonging cymbal. And so just settling my own heart and having that quiet heart before the Lord. And
if you don't have that, you can even really start to have resentment build up
right.
of all that I'm doing and going through. And nobody knows, nobody cares. Does anybody appreciate this? Yeah.
Having a Martha Christmas instead of a Merry Christmas. But just a few little things that I've loved doing with my kids through the years is just having a bulletin board by our eating table and just decorate it. And I put on just a simple, I'm not artistic, but just a tree shape. And we had put gifts on there as attributes of Jesus, as we'd think about them and verses to go along with them. Or some years we'd put on gifts that Jesus gives to us. And just as a visual reminder, just, hands-on type of thing for me as well as them.
So like you put up one each day?
Or as many as you wanted. It could be a bunch some days and not so much the other day.
But you do this not just Christmas Day, but through the month
the whole month.
December?
Yeah. But, we don't want to make it a legalistic thing. We don't want to hold to our traditions. The whole idea is just to point us to Christ. I need these reminders too, and I think my attitude in seeing this as something we've got to do, it's going to affect their attitude. If they see it as something that I love, being reminded of these are gifts Jesus gives to us. He gives us peace with God. What a gift is that? Nothing compares to that, and it's just, I think, a lot dependent on my attitude. But my favorite thing we've done through the years is on Christmas Eve, and it was never really Christmas Eve. It was whatever day we chose to be Christmas Eve. We would turn all the lights off in the house, except the tree lights or some little Christmas lights. And we had a lot of candles. We'd always invite people in. And we would take turns sharing what God has taught us this past year, or something we're especially thankful, or how we've experienced God in a significant way this past year. And as each person shares, we light a candle. And it can go on and on. I mean, for hours sometimes. And by the end of the night, you just have all these beautiful candles that Jesus truly is the light of the world. And He's shown His light into our hearts and into our lives this past year. And those sharing times have been my very favorite part of this time of year.
Sweet.
When I was growing up, we opened all of our presents on Christmas Eve. Christmas morning was really a downer for us, so I wanted to do everything on Christmas morning. But I just say that to say I wanted so much to start our own traditions, and when I would say that to my husband, I could just see a wall coming up. And for years, I was married 41 years, and I should just preface this by saying my husband went home to be with the Lord about 2.5 years ago, so I'm in a whole new season. But over those years, I was so puzzled and prayed a lot over that and wanted so much to have Christ-centered traditions and such. And as my husband and I grew closer and he began to bare his soul to me, I realized that his childhood was extremely painful. And it had a Christian name to it, but yet there were so many things that were hurtful to him that he just didn't want any expectations. And so when I just released all that, there were some traditions that began to just take shape without me always, I would say, okay, we're starting a new tradition this year. I've read Shirley Dobson's book, and from now on, we're going to do this. And he would I could just see it, just that wall, and it was real painful to him. So, just backed off and just let it be, sort of. We did read the Christmas story, not every single time, not in the same way. We did some other things that, just traditional things, driving around looking at lights and just talking a little bit about things. But in those last years, even especially after our kids grew up, he started initiating some traditions that were very special to us personally. But the other thing that I thought I would share that's been real delightful for me is I always carry a little packet of Christmas tracts. I found some just delightful things. One was written by Ruth Graham, and when I just feel prompted, I'll be in a store, maybe even just picking up groceries or just anywhere, a parking lot where there's, somebody putting away baskets. I just feel that prompting of the Lord, and I just ask him, would you mind if I give you something to read? It just talks about Christmas. Anyway, those are some things that I think, that are real meaningful. And now I'm just starting a whole new thing. I don't know what I'm doing or where I'm going. I don't know how to feel. I don't know where I belong, but I know that the Lord's helping me through that too.
That reminds me, Karen, one of the things I remember my dad doing on Thanksgiving and Christmas, he would in the morning make calls to widows.
Wonderful.
And I don't know that it was a lot of them, but people that were going to be without a mate or in a new season of loss or grief. But I can remember that making such an impression on me as a young girl and teenage girl that he was, before our family would do family things, which we did, that he was thinking about those who maybe didn't have family on that day. And it's given me a heart for widows on those holidays. I think often, I don't always make calls on those days, but sometimes I do, and or somebody who's just lost a mate that year. So hearing from you, Karen, is a good reminder to us. And the heart you have for single women, that's a blessing to me to hear that. And so there may be some listening to this who do have intact families, and you have your family thing going on, but be alert to opportunities the Lord may give you to reach out to those who are not having the benefit of a family in that day. Maybe they're away from home, or they're widowed or single. And that doesn't, again, mean this is something else to put on your to-do list. My concern about doing a program like this is to hear all these ideas, and then some of you type A firstborns say, oh, I got to do all this. Now, you don't have to do all this. You don't have to do any of this. But they're just ideas that God may put some of these on your heart and say, oh, this is something that you could do that would be a blessing to others. And it'll bless you too.
And I'll have to say, I've been the recipient of a lot of kindnesses over the last 2 Christmases now without my husband. And so...
Can you give some examples?
Sure. A lot of phone calls. For sure. Little cards, people specifically acknowledging, I know this is your first Christmas without Kyle. Mm-hmm. You know, just entering into that grief with me. Yeah. I have one girlfriend especially that always mentions his name and tells me specific things that she remembers about him. Mm-hmm. So that's real special to me. My kids are a little more hesitant about that. I think it's because it's so tender for them as well. But the phone calls and the cards and little gifts, you know, because most of my gifts, and they weren't elaborate. Kyle and I were always pretty, we had to kind of live paycheck to paycheck most of our married life. But, you know, they knew that I would be missing the fact that he was shopping for me. And so they would acknowledge that and give me just little gifts, nothing elaborate at all. Asking me what I was going to do. Did I have plans? Did I want to eat with their family? I think I had 3 Christmases last year. You know, like you got to come by and see us. You know, and so I went to 3 different places on Christmas Eve, and so just all those kinds of things were so special for me.
I love Christmas, and when my first son was born, we started reevaluating things and trying to come up with good traditions that would help us keep our focus. And this year, I'm really excited about something we're starting. But God really convicted me this year that I've been a slave to materialism. And we've been trying to teach our boys, we have 3 of them, to fight sin in their lives and how to practically do that. And I was looking at Christmas and I was thinking, man, growing up we would write out a wish list, and there's nothing wrong with writing out a wish list. But I thought, man, that did not help fight selfishness in my life, and I don't want to pass that on to my boys. And so I thought, okay, the wish list we're not going to do. And I was reading a blog a while ago, and the woman was writing about her son who said, Mom, what does Jesus get for Christmas? And he goes, on my birthday, people sacrifice and they give me gifts. What does Jesus get? And that question led her and her family to not give gifts at Christmas to each other, and instead they would pick out things to give to people that needed it. And I read that, I think last year, I read that, and I thought, oh, how sad. I want to give gifts to people. I think that's so good. It's so fun. And I want my boys to wake up in anticipation that we're going to get gifts, and we're going to give gifts. And then as God started to convict me of materialism in my life, and I was thinking, God's been bringing to mind how lost our world is. And he said, Andrea, there are boys like Luke and Caleb and Ethan who are dying because they don't have water to drink and they don't have food to eat. And he said, and you're trying to figure out if I should give Legos to my boys or movies, and they already have those. What if you showed them your love to them instead of giving them more gifts? But if you showed them that we need to be showing our love to other people by giving them gifts. So this year we are not giving gifts to ourselves or our children, but we are picking out things for other people. And I love how God works because I'm so excited. I've never been filled with more joy and less sorrow than right now. And I get to watch my 5-year-old. He's pouring over this catalog from Gospel for Asia. And he says, Mommy, we could give them sheep. And what about chickens? And Mom, they don't have any blankets. We need to give them blankets. And Mommy, I have an extra one in my closet. Can I give them that too? And I'm so excited about this. And just, I first thought how extreme that is, but I thought, well, man, how much more love can I show my boys by not giving them more stuff that they don't need, but to maybe pass on a legacy that we're going to give gifts to Jesus this year. And we're writing out on little cards everything that we're giving, and we're going to hide them all over the house, and we're going to go on a treasure hunt, and then we're going to bring them to the tree, and we're going to say, here, Jesus, this is what we're giving to you for your birthday. And anyways, I'm very excited about God moving that way in our family.
Wow. Thank you, Andrea. Andrea said, how extreme is that? And when she said that, it makes me think of Jesus. And the verse that comes to mind is 2 Corinthians 9, verse 8. For you know the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, that though he was rich, yet for your sakes he became poor, not getting, but giving, so that you through his poverty might be made rich. And Andrew just illustrated the heart of Jesus, the heart of Christmas. And again, that's not to say that if your family decides to give gifts, that there's anything wrong with that. Andrew's not saying that. We're not saying that. But what if we would begin to think radically about how to live out the gospel and our faith, not just at Christmas, but all year round. And I watch today, and I'm not pointing the finger at anybody else, I'm just saying how birthdays and Christmas, the norm is for it to be all about us. And what are we training the next generation in terms of its values? I mean, poor kids today, and I need to be careful about saying this because I know there are those who genuinely don't have necessities of life, but many, many people today who consider themselves on the poor end of things have so much more than so many kids in other parts of the world. And that's not to say that therefore we should all have nothing. That's not what the scripture teaches, but for us not to be conscious of that and to be just accumulating more stuff for ourselves that we don't need, don't appreciate, in some cases don't even want, and then making a living out of garage sales, getting rid of stuff, There's something kind of just backwards and maybe even perverse about that bent in our culture. And again, I don't want to make it sound like it's wrong to have things or to have nice things, because it's the heart that God's really looking at. But I'm so thankful to see in some of these younger families a new and growing sensitivity to being oriented toward others rather than self. And it makes my heart so glad to hear a young family thinking this way, and it challenges my own thinking and values. So thank you, Andrea. It's a reflection of Christ.
At Thanksgiving, my nephew Andrew had a conversation with my mom, his grandma, and he was like, Grandma, I wish every day were Christmas Day. And he's like, no, Grandma, that would be exhausting. He's 6. And he gets it. And then he said, and you know what? I have too many toys. I don't even have room in my bedroom for them. And so when you were talking about, I think we feel as adults, as parents, as mothers, that we can't change the traditions of Christmas and the materialism of Christmas because we're going to disappoint our children. And I sometimes wonder if they're not asking us to change it. I call myself a newlywed because my husband promised we'd be newlyweds forever, and I'm holding him to it. So I've been married for 6 years, and he's a great joy and delight in my life. But I'm a driver. I'm type A, firstborn, and he is more laid back. And so sometimes I think it's just respecting that most of the time men are more laid back about schedules, about activities. And I think we want it to be perfect. And I think they have insight that Christmas is more about relationships and about slowing down than we do. And I think just letting our husbands kind of set the pace and set the rhythm for our holidays, I think even just in life, I think it's wise when we do that, because I think they have some type of wisdom that slows them down and doesn't get them all a flutter. We're always a flutter. I'm just like, always going. And so some of the things that I've found that have quieted my Christmas is Christmas presents are bought throughout the year. When I see something that reminds me of my mom, or I think, oh, that'd be good for my mom, it might be February, but I am buying it and I'm putting it in a little bin in my basement. So pretty much by the time Thanksgiving comes around, I'm done. I want to be done by Thanksgiving, because you do not want me to be in a mall at Christmas because I might hurt somebody because it's so tense and it's so ugly, and I could get right on board with it, and I don't want to be like that. So I do give gifts, but they're bought throughout the year. And the other thing is, I guess I was saying about Eric just having wisdom about slowing down the pace. You don't have to do everything. And so, like, on my calendar for tomorrow, it says no plans. There are no plans. And that is the plan, because Eric and I talked about it, like, okay, there was a lot going on. There's the recording I knew I was coming to, and we had things at the beginning of the week. And so Saturday is no plans. And so I've had people call, hey, can you do something on Saturday? I'm sorry, we have something planned. And that plan is no plans. But I think we just need to do that more, just to be intentional about when we do, quote, nothing. But really what that time is, it's a time for you to be together with your family. It's a time for you to have that quietness with the Lord in the season. And so sprinkled throughout December purposefully is, when are the days of no plans? And those are sacred. You don't move those. So those are my thoughts.
We've been hearing a lot of helpful ideas on making Christmas less hectic and more meaningful. A group of women have been sharing with Nancy DeMoss Walgemuth about ways they've kept their focus on Jesus during the holiday season. Maybe you want to try one of these ideas too. I hope you're feeling inspired. I hope you want to make the most of this Christmas and live fruitfully this season. But even beyond this week and next, Revive Our Hearts wants women to experience freedom, fullness, and fruitfulness in every season. When you make a donation of any amount, you're helping women be fruitful in all seasons of life. And I want to tell you about an exciting opportunity we have for you this month especially. You see, we're trusting the Lord for our most significant year-end goal to date. Every dollar that we raise this month will support the creation and distribution of resources that will take women deeper into relationship with Jesus Christ in the coming year. And in addition, thanks to a generous group of donors who are passionate about helping women thrive in Christ, every gift will be matched dollar for dollar up to a total of $2.1 million. I'm so grateful for that. And we need your support. And I wonder, as the Lord leads, would you consider that He might be asking you to give toward the work He's doing through this ministry? I'm praying He will. In fact, I want to thank you in advance for your generous support at this very important time. Visit reviveourhearts.com to give, or call us at 1-800-569-5959. That's 1-800-569-5959. Tomorrow, we'll continue talking about eliminating unrealistic expectations for the holidays and replacing them with traditions that keep us focused on Christ. Please be back for Revive Our Hearts. Revive Our Hearts with Nancy DeMoss Wolgemuth, calling you to freedom, fullness, and fruitfulness in Christ.